Hey there, Ramblers and Rovers, this is Miguel, and I am coming at you from beautiful Mérida, Mexico, here on the Yucatan Peninsula, and we are at the spectacular Mayan-themed fountain in Las Americas Park on the outskirts of downtown Mérida. And today I wanted to have a special conversation with you about how to take care of your needs while you're traveling. So here's a little backstory about who I am and how I've traveled and how that has influenced how I try to get my needs met when I travel, how do I take care of myself when I travel. I started traveling more or less 7 years ago when I decided to turn pirate and travel the world. I mean, basically that's what it was. And I left my hometown of Monterrey and decided to visit indigenous peoples all over the world and to share their stories and what the experience of living with them is. And I left with $40 in my pocket, spent them in 2 days, and for the next month and a half I traveled on $1, which was pretty hard, but it was very enriching too, because it taught me a very important skill that has helped and influenced how I travel ever since then. And how it has influenced it is that it really taught me to be flexible around traveling. It taught me how to travel lightly. It taught me what was actually important while I'm traveling, instead of just, you know, having this like luxury like mindset. I acquired a mindset that just having your basics covered is the luxury, and anything else is just, you know, extra and even a little like superfluous. I mean, I understand that not everybody will approach their own travels according to your own style in such like a Spartan hard way, but you know, as somebody who frequently goes into remote places like the Lacandon jungle in southern Mexico, or like different parts of Colombia, or Native American reservations that are a little out, like further out in the US, or even here in Mexico visiting Mayan peoples and traveling with shamans, you have to learn to adapt to the circumstances, and that is kind of the obvious advice, right? There's no real benefit in just having somebody just come up to you and say, well, you know what you need to be more flexible. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to show you how to be more flexible, and it's to show you where you should learn to be more flexible and where you shouldn't be more flexible. So when you're on the road and you don't know what's going to happen, you have no idea, there's no amount of thinking that will or can prepare you for absolutely everything that will happen on the road. And that is precisely why we learn to be flexible, because it's that skill which allows you to face things as they're coming up, moment to moment, when you're on the road. But there is a mental component to this that is kind of preventative, and that makes the flexibility part of this way easier to grasp. And that is trying to discern what needs are negotiable and what needs are non-negotiable, not vis-a-vis somebody else, but for yourself. So what is important for you, and what will you give importance to? So among the survivalist community, you know, there's this big adage around having that certain needs are more important than others, and it holds true in travel too, right? So obviously here we can talk about the basics of survival, and that is, in this order: water, shelter, food, safety, and then anything else you might need. So to structure our minds around like the discipline of we will need to adapt, and what we can't adapt, it's much easier if we just separate it into these two broad categories. The survivals are the non-negotiables, and anything else is half decently negotiable unless you decide to turn it into a non-negotiable. Like in the instance of if you're traveling abroad and you're still holding a job as a digital nomad back home, right? Anything that is survival related will be non-negotiable. So those are the things that you will want to cover first, and after that, anything else you can kind of find ways to adapt or drop in different scenarios. We have to understand that how these needs get covered in any given instance will largely depend on where you are and what is available to you in the specific place where you are. A good tip here is to ask yourself the wise question of how do the locals do it? Because humans have the same needs. We're all alike. We all have commonalities in what we need. Everybody needs clean drinking water. Everybody needs good food, shelter, like all these things, right? And then on top of that, we have like the secondary needs such as enjoyment, entertainment, and all these different extra needs that we want to get covered. So asking yourself what locals are doing and how they are adapting to the specific environment where they are living and have lived, oftentimes and more often than not for hundreds if not thousands of years, should inform how we approach it in that specific place. Because it's much easier to just do as Romans do when in Rome, right? Than to try to invent the wheel. Taking a look at what the locals are doing and just adapting some of those behaviors insofar as they line up and match with your values and what you want to do and what you need to do is a great first step when you're on the road somewhere where you don't know how to properly access what you need, but you still need to, right? Another way that we can adapt and take care of ourselves when we travel is to try to plan ahead as much as we can and set ourselves up for flexibility, because that is what will enable us to face challenges, the unknown challenges specifically, as they come up while on the road. So, for example, how does this look in practice? It means that if you know that you have to drink water, and everybody has to drink water, of course, I mean, it's like the most obvious thing that you have to get covered, and you are going into a country with little to no sanitation or with sketchy infrastructure, it's as simple as buying a bottle with a water filter in it that might enable you to drink the tap water. Or that might mean that, for example, if you need fruits and vegetables to stay healthy and you are in an area that doesn't have oranges but it might have apricots, then you eat apricots, right? So you have to try to discern what is available and just try to prepare to face those conditions and set your own travel infrastructure up so that you can meet your own needs on the road. And of course, you will never be able to prepare entirely for every single challenge that comes up when you're on the road, but still it pays off to try to anticipate the need before it ever becomes one. And the most obvious needs are the ones that are also the most important needs. So these are the ones that if you have them covered, anything else you can just kind of negotiate or find a way to adapt or find a way to get it fulfilled at that place, or even go without it for a little bit if it's not that big of a deal. Another aspect of taking yourself on the road, which I think is key, and this is just kind of like the nature of travel itself, is that there is a very social component to taking care of yourself on the road, because you as a traveler are vulnerable wherever you go, right? Because you are not from a specific place. You don't know what the pitfalls are, what the dangers are. You don't know if the water is good to drink, if a certain food can affect you negatively in a certain way. You don't know if an area is safe. Like, you just don't know a lot of things. So it helps to rely on local knowledge and just locals, and just to ask people how certain things work wherever you are. Because again, you're trying to not invent the wheel here, and you're asking for somebody who already has access to that body of knowledge, so that you can adapt as locals adapt. That's one side of this social aspect of travel. Another way that I have found that it is very easy to take care of yourself while traveling is to stay in shared accommodation. Although I know that this is not something that everybody does or everybody has a willingness to do, I consider myself to be a hardcore backpacker. So I love staying in hostels and shared accommodations. I love even sometimes in Airbnbs where you have access to like different people, right? To have friends, to go out and just be a social person. So when you are in these shared accommodations, especially ones that are frequented by travelers, these places tend to already account for most of what you need, or they can direct you to how you can get those needs fulfilled. Do you need to do some laundry? Well, here's the number to the local laundry shop, or here's the directions of how to get there. Do you need recommendations on good food from healthy, reputable, sanitary places? Well, here's a list of them. You don't know what places are safe? Well, here's where you should go and where you shouldn't go. Do you want to go somewhere and try things, but you probably don't think it's safe to do it alone? Well, get a group of people to go with you. So just relying on other people, which is something that I feel that people in more developed countries who don't have a need to do it as much in their own home country kind of struggle with this aspect a little, I think. But it's something that in less developed countries, or in countries that have a culture of closer proximity, it's just more common to do things with people, or to rely on other people to do certain things. So it's okay to be social. Don't be afraid, don't be shy. That's kind of why we are traveling, to interact with the world and to become a part of it, right? So just taking care of your needs when you're on the road, more than an exact science, is an art. And an art takes creativity. So you have to be creative about how you get your needs met, because it is not always going to look exactly how you pictured it, or exactly how it looks like back home. So the adaptability is the leading principle that we use to figure out how to get our bases covered, right? And sometimes it's as easy as thinking out of the box of what is normal for you, and taking risks and trying new things, so that you can find things that work for you in a specific place or situation. So sometimes it might take trying all the different local foods, see what you like, see what feels healthy, see what makes you feel good. Other times it might take making friends with locals, so that they tell you where all the local free yoga classes are, so you can, exercise and make more friends. It's just about staying open and not really getting too invested in your own way of doing things, but rather in staying open to new ways of thinking, new ways of being, new ways of doing things, so that you are never left with things that are uncovered. And again, with things that are non-negotiables, you always have the agency to say, no, this is important to me, and I will make an extraordinary effort to get this covered, yes or yes. So, you can always just find what works best for you. You don't have to do what every other traveler does, or you don't have to do what you do back home. There's a nice mix of all these different worlds, and that nice place where all these different things come together and mix, that is your sweet spot. That is where you will find the best of all worlds. And that is how you start learning and implementing how to cover your needs while you're on the road. I hope you guys learned something from this video. I hope you found it informative. If you did, please like the video, drop a comment, and tell us how we're doing around these videos, or if you want us to talk about something else specifically or have any questions. Remember to subscribe to the channel and to share our content if you did like it. So hopefully we'll see you in our next video so you can catch up with our next adventures. Until then, hasta luego, amigos, and see you soon.